Tonight, the Special Investigations Unit responds to a call in Kenora after a police-involved incident.
The fire has really affected us, really personally, and now we see a charred land.
After the devastating fires that swept through the Northwest Territories last year, one First Nation is wanting to replant what was lost.
Christy honors traditional Métis beadwork, and that style that makes us all think of our ancestors.
And Métis artist Christy Belart is being honored in a unique way. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Ontario's Special Investigations Unit is investigating an incident today at Anishnabe Park in Kenora, Ontario. According to the Kenora Ontario Provincial Police, they responded to a call for service at the park shortly after the noon hour. In a press release, the OPP says during the course of the investigation, one person suffered injuries and was taken to hospital by EMS. Video posted on social media shows a man standing in front of the burning building. He appears to be holding knives in each hand. More than a half dozen OPP officers, including one aiming a gun, are visible. The OPP says it notified the province's SIU, which has invoked its mandate. As a result, the OPP will not be providing any further information. The Special Investigations Unit did not respond to a request for information and has not yet posted a release on the incident. The post on the City of Kenora's website says there was a significant fire at the store located at Anishnabe Park. The OPP are expected to be on scene for the next 24 to 48 hours. Sadly, that incident comes just days after an event at the park on National Indigenous Peoples Day to commemorate a monumental anniversary. 50 years ago, First Nations youth occupied Anishnabe Park, demanding housing, employment opportunities, and the return of the park lands to their original stewards. APTN Sierra Bettens brings you that story.
In the summer of 1974, dozens of First Nations youth, led by the Ojibwe Warrior Society, headed by Louis Cameron, launched an armed occupation of Anishnabe Park. At 20 years old, Sally Skeed was one of them.
It was a hard time for our people at the time. There was a lot of violence towards our people at the time, and a lot of the young people were tired of it.
On National Indigenous Peoples Day, she is among the surviving veterans being honored on the 50th anniversary of the occupation. That summer, on the lands now known as Kenora, Ontario, the occupiers voiced their demands: better housing, employment opportunities, and an overhaul of the Department of Indian Affairs, to name a few. They were also calling for the return of the Anishnabe Park lands they claimed were illegally bought and sold by the city in 1959.
And this Anishnabe Park, that used to be our land. They used to have an Indian house here, and all the Anishnabe people would come here in the summertime, and they would have ceremonies, healing ceremonies.
Eddie Mandaman was 10 years old, attending a nearby residential school during the occupation. He recalls the abuse he endured worsening at that time.
But I consider my time for that was I was part of the warriorship. Although we weren't part of the occupation here, but we were still held prisoners in the residential school, and because of the park here, they made our lives miserable for the summer.
The occupation brought issues faced by First Nations in Treaty 3 to center stage. One of them was the mercury contamination of Grassy Narrows First Nation. Over half a century later, the issue persists, with around 90% of its members displaying symptoms of mercury poisoning.
The only thing we're asking for is equality. That's what I want, is equality. To be able to be treated like all other Canadians.
50 years on, the veterans say much has changed for the better.
If you really look at Kenora, we actually came a long ways. Over the last 50 years, we took care of some of the houses. We got a lot of First Nations living in Kenora. We have a lot of Treaty 3 police officers that are now homeowners in Kenora. They hired me as a new Indigenous Relation Officer to help with the Truth and Reconciliation. So I think the movement that this present council has is very proactive.
In his lifetime, Mandamin hopes he'll witness the return of the park lands to their original stewards, the Anishnabe of Treaty 3.
One of my things is to actually do the land back, because this was the actual first land back initiative in North America in 1974, the very first one. And this should be celebrated with that historical content of that land back happened here.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Quick update now on an election at the Southern Chiefs Organization, a group that represents 33 First Nations in southern Manitoba. The organization's election was held earlier today. The SCO has re-elected Jerry Daniels as Grand Chief. Daniels defeated the only other candidate in the race, Kyra Wilson, with 21 votes to 13 votes. Just chiefs or proxies are allowed to vote in the SCO elections. Daniels and Wilson are both from the Long Plain First Nation near Portage la Prairie. Wilson briefly held the position of Chief of Long Plain First Nation. Alberta MLA Jody Calahoo-Stonehouse is going to have to wait to become the leader of the Alberta NDP. The party picked a new leader on Saturday. Former three-time Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi took 86% of the leadership votes on Saturday in Calgary in a landslide victory. Cree and Mohawk leadership candidate Jody Calahoo-Stonehouse from Michael First Nation in Alberta finished fourth with 1.7% of the votes. The first-term MLA told APTN that it's back to work as an MLA and that she will consider running for leadership again in the future. After historic wildfires in previous years, a First Nation in the Northwest Territories is embarking on an ambitious reforestation project. Our reporter Charlotte Moore Jacobs takes us to the field to find out more.
Klitcho Nation is helping heal the land, one tree at a time. It's the biggest ever reforestation project in the Northwest Territories, with 1 million trees to be planted on Klitcho land over the next 3 years, starting this summer. To kick things off, prayers, blessings, and friendship trees are planted in Edzo to welcome biologists and funders of the project. Bechacon's Chief Clifford Daniels says the work will be guided by traditional knowledge and supported by Western science.
The fire has really affected us really personal, and now we see a charred land. It's all black, and so it is a good project. We want to make sure that the trees have opportunity to grow faster than before.
APTN, grateful to meet you.
Oh, thank you. Welcome to.
Last fall, Klitcho Nation signed a memorandum of understanding with BC-based tree planting company Let's Plant Trees, a national nonprofit, Trees Canada. They'll plant white and black spruce, birch, aspen, and tamarack. Director of Culture and Lands Protection with the Klitcho government, Tammy Steinwin, says the project will work to support ecosystem restoration and economic development by hiring local people.
So last year we had a bunch of seedlings that were collected that are now being grown in Saskatchewan. So once they get to be a certain size, they'll come back. And what we're doing here today is going up with the helicopter with specific people to look at the different sites where we want to plant these trees.
Within Klitcho lands, most caribou habitat disturbance is caused by wildfire and not humans. This area was burned out a few years ago. Now, elders, environmental monitors, and forestry experts are scouting it for the best place to plant seedlings.
Seeds to plant 3 million trees, and they're in Saskatchewan now in good care. We're going out on the land to decide where these trees should be planted and then bring the knowledge back to you.
President of Let's Plant Trees, David Tompkins, says the project aims to help the Klitchos share their expertise and experience with others whose land is adversely affected by climate change.
As far as helping to regenerate Mother Earth, we think that we can advance this by 80 to 120 years, somewhere around there. That's 3 or 4 generations sooner that these trees would be available for the caribou and the other fur-bearing animals and the rabbits and everybody that uses these trees.
Tree planting in remote regions isn't cheap either. Project managers will need to compare helicopter costs to efficiencies of planters. So far, the federal government has given Cleatcho government $150,000 for regional reforestation projects. Worth every penny, says the Cleatcho.
The cones are used and boiled, and then they use the broth for colds. So different medicines with different plants and can be used for different ailments. So that's another project that we're working on with Amy regarding plants and medicines.
In 2023, Bechico and Wekwati were forced to evacuate due to wildfires, with some homes destroyed and large swaths of ancient forests decimated. Along with habitat restoration, the project will also include fire-smart planting, selecting fire-resistant trees such as aspen and poplar. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Cleatcho Territory.
Thanks, Charlotte. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is now complete. We're taking a deeper look at the project. That and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. The twinning of the Trans Mountain Pipeline is now complete, which will now transport close to 1 million barrels of bitumen from the tar sands in Alberta to Burnaby, BC, and then loaded onto super tankers destined for Asian markets. APTN's Tina House takes a closer look at the project and those that say it's just a matter of time before a major accident happens.
Since the twinning of the Trans Mountain Pipeline was first announced, controversy has followed, from large-scale protests and rallies with thousands of people.
Justin Trudeau promised. He promised a new relationship with my people. He promised that this project could not move forward unless it was done through a vigorous and thorough review, which he broke. He is a liar. He is a liar. He is a liar. This is what democracy looks like.
Others went to extreme measures, like some land defenders chaining themselves to work vehicles, to some high-profile arrests of Grand Chief Stuart Phillip and Tsleil-Waututh Elder Ta'a.
I'd sooner die than have Kinder Morgan come in here with their poison. I've walked the tar sands. I've seen the sickness. All of the families there, they got someone who is dying of cancer. They got ear infection, eye infection, stomach infection. Little kids running around with great big running sores on them. That'll be us.
Dozens of others that were arrested served jail time and received heavy fines, like Tsleil-Waututh Nation member Will George, who not only led the watch house that was built on the pipeline route on Burnaby Mountain, but he also suspended himself off the Second Narrows Bridge for 24 hours. He says it's not a matter of if, but when there is a spill, as history has shown us.
Bitumen it sinks to the bottom. You cannot recover it. So there's lots of facades. You look and there's spill response vessels all along the coast. That's a facade. People think, okay, look at they have these vessels. They have a plan, but it's a facade. It's a lie, and it's sinister because you cannot clean this up. It will sink to the bottom, and that's the threat that poses to our sailor seas.
Numerous court cases ensued from First Nations and environmental groups saying the project was too risky for the environment. The court struck down all those cases, clearing a path to move forward for the company. However, rallies have continued. The first Trans Mountain Pipeline was built in 1953 and was considered a monumental engineering feat at the time, traversing over mountains, rivers, creeks, and rough terrain. In June of 2019, the federal government approved the twinning of the pipeline. However, at some points, taking a different route because of modern-day construction, hydro, and roadways. 12 new pump stations were added along the route. 19 more tanks were added to the storage terminals in Edmonton, Sumas, and Burnaby. 3 new berths were built at the Westridge Marine Terminal, increasing the number of tankers in the Broad Inlet to 34 a month. However, what was first estimated to only cost $5 billion has now ballooned to $34 billion, paid by Canadian taxpayers, after the federal government purchased the pipeline in August of 2018. West Coast environmental law lawyer Eugene Kung says it's already a financial loss for Canadians.
So the fees that the pipeline company charges its oil company customers simply don't allow for them to cover even close to the $34 billion price tag. Trans Mountain is currently in front of the Canadian Energy Regulator asking for approval of interim tolls. And the tolls that they've asked for, based on a previously approved tolling methodology, will only recover less than half of the $34 billion project cost.
Despite the federal government owning the pipeline, Kinder Morgan is responsible for building the pipeline. Our request for an interview from Kinder Morgan was not granted by the time this story went to air. In part 2 of this story, we take a closer look at those that support the project and those that continue to fight against it. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Time for another quick break. Coming up, the latest stamp honoring an Indigenous leader is unveiled. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Dorothy Ratt shared some amazing photos of some amazing dancers from the Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations in Cranbrook, British Columbia. Looks like they had some beautiful weather too. Thanks for sharing. If you have pictures from festivities in your area, send them to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's soggy weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 26 in showers in Halifax, 18 and rain in St. John's. Rain and a high of 5 in Kuujjuaq, 10 with rain in Nain. 25 with showers in Montreal, cloudy, and 17 in Val-d'Or. Cloudy and 18 for North Bay, showers, and 17 in Sault Ste. Marie. 19 with rain in Thunder Bay, a cloudy high of 19 in Sioux Lookout. In northern Manitoba, 16 with showers in God's Lake, 17 and rain in Norway House. 20 with rain in Winnipeg, showers, and 22 in Barons River. 24 in Regina, 23 for Saskatoon and North Battleford. 21 in Meadow Lake, 22 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 25 in High Level and Fort Chipewyan. Cloudy and 23 in Edmonton, showers, and 29 in Lethbridge. 19 with rain in Vancouver, rain, and 24 in Kamloops. 21 with showers in Prince George, rain, and 18 in Smithers. 26 in Old Crow, showers, and 26 in Whitehorse. A sunny high of 21 for Yellowknife, 26 in Norman Wells. 11 in Sax Harbor, 13 for Paulatuck. 8 with rain in Chesterfield, 10 in showers in Whale Cove. 8 in Resolute, 12 in Arctic Bay. Renowned Métis visual artist Christy Belart is the latest person to be featured in Canada Post's Indigenous Leaders series. Earlier this month, Inuk singer and filmmaker Alyssa P. and renowned Anishnabe water rights activist Josephine Mandamin were also honored with stamps of their own. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
Known as a visual artist whose work often features beading, a new stamp featuring Christy Belart was unveiled at Ottawa's Wabineau Centre on Tuesday morning.
obviously it's a great honor, to have my work recognized, but at the same time,
she says it is about recognizing the Métis artistic community as a whole.
I always think about community and how many people are working in community that don't get this kind of honor, and how many people deserve recognition for the work they do, how important community is, how we all really hold each other up.
The gala event was attended by a number of prominent figures in the Métis community, including esteemed writer Maria Campbell, who spoke about the effect Belcourt's art has had on her.
Christy has inspired me for many years, inspired me as a writer and as a woman and as a grandmother. I have a house full of her art, and each day that art feeds my soul and my life with stories, songs, ceremonies, and memories of the women in our communities and in my life.
Métis National Council President Cassidy Caron also noted the role Belcourt's works have played in revitalizing Métis culture.
Christy honors traditional Métis beadwork and that style that makes us all think of our ancestors and where we came from and the stories that our artwork can tell. And now all Canadians have the opportunity, if they haven't already, to meet someone who has kept our beautiful culture alive and growing.
Honors aside, Belcourt says artists must also never forget the role they have as agents of social and cultural change.
I think artists have a unique way of looking at the world. We have a responsibility and a way of speaking to truth that we have to have courage in our art, and so therefore we can't hold back when we need to say things.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Well, while the Edmonton Oilers are licking their wounds from last night's Stanley Cup loss, the Florida Panthers and defenseman from Six Nations territory in Ontario finally got to realize his dream.
The Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup!
After the Panthers lost the cup to Vegas Golden Knights last year, Brandon Montour, who is Mohawk, was able to hoist the cup for the first time in his career on Monday night. The Panthers managed to shut down the high-scoring Edmonton Oilers, who had won 3 in a row to force a Game 7 and hang on for a 2-1 victory in front of their hometown fans. Montour says he'll be bringing the Stanley Cup home to Six Nations this summer. What a series it was. Congrats to the Florida Panthers. Update now on our lead story tonight. The Ontario Special Investigations Unit now confirming that it is investigating after an OPP officer fatally shot a man today at Anishnabe Park in Kenora. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For much more, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I will see you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for your first look at the news. Have a great night.